Welcome to the Answers Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello, and thank you for listening to the Answers Yes podcast. Man, we've been going 4 years strong, about 380 shows, and our numbers keep growing, and we're in the high 70,000s in terms of subscribers. I'm just so grateful for that. I know a lot of people have heard our message across this country, really across the world. You know, when I raced for Monster Energy Drink a few years ago in the trophy truck, spec trophy truck class, we picked up a whole bunch of listeners out of Australia. So that was kind of cool because I raced with the Australian drivers. But I just want to thank you all for your messages and what we're trying to do here. And that's to create an environment of people's stories that you may find inspiration from to chase your own. We all have stories. You'll notice I don't bring a bunch of celebrities on. I want everyday people that are doing something significant. And in the last 12 months, I've brought on a lot of guests that will bring something to you that they're currently doing. And that's why I've brought Brad on today. So Brad, thank you for being here with your Reliant fitness program.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Happy to be here and happy to share.
Now, I stumbled upon you because I do some work with Rob Bailey. Rob Bailey. Some people know him on the Instagram. I'm a CEO for his Training Grounds, which is his coaching program. And he did a speaking event with one of your buddies, Wes. And so I started following Wes. And Wes is a very interesting character. I love what he's doing. But, you know, I started digging into the people that he surrounded himself with. And there you were, this beacon of light with your message specifically resonating with me. And I know it's very similar to Wes. I don't want to take anything away from what he's done and what you've learned and traded. But for some reason, I just thought, I got to get Brad on the show. So thank you for being here.
Oh, man, I really appreciate it. That's a massive compliment. So thank you once again.
Well, look, I know you've got a story to tell. So how about we hear a little bit of your background, how you got to where you're at today, and you can fill in all the blanks you want. But I definitely want to talk about your personal coaching and what you're doing, because that's the fire that inspired me also. So let's hear a little bit of background.
Cool. So I'll try not to go back too far, but I spent most of my adult life working as an automotive mechanic, roughly, 10, 11 years working as a mechanic. And I just kind of always felt like I was kind of destined for more. I wanted to do more. And don't get me wrong, I love working on cars, and there's nothing wrong with mechanics or working with your hands. I prided myself on it for a very long time. But I wanted to get more into like actual service. So my calling was, becoming a firefighter. So at 30 years old, I sat down and kind of created a game plan to get into the fire service like as fast as possible. So, I was basically sat down, figured out how I can get my EMT, my emergency medical technician certification, and a fire academy knocked out within 6 months, and then come back to San Luis Obispo County and start working at a fire station, whatever fire station would take me. And that was kind of like my call to falling back into a regiment and disciplined lifestyle. Something where I was going to have to basically toe a certain line in order to maintain, what was needed in order to have that job, have that career. So I knocked out my EMT, knocked out a fire academy, came back to San Luis. Fortunately, the plan was going great. Started working as a firefighter, at 3 different stations as what we call a reserve firefighter. So it's basically a part-time position. So that was I was circulating around the county, filling spots where I could, getting experience, spending time. And then I got into more of a full-time position with CAL FIRE. Now, I've been with CAL FIRE now for roughly, I'm going to just say 3 years. So I'm still very new to firefighting, but where the fitness thing kind of came back into the mix was last season, I hurt my knee. I had a partial MCL tear. So I was out of work. I was kind of bummed out. I was missing, fire season. so I started doing a lot of homework and kind of brainstorming on something I needed to do. I'm like, okay, well, I need to figure something else out because this isn't necessarily covering everything I need. Now, I worked as a personal trainer when I was younger, in my late teens and early 20s. When I went for the short period of time I was in college, I studied exercise science and kinesiology. So I have a background in it and, previous certifications, even though it's years ago. Um, so I found West and I'd been following him for quite some time. And then I saw a couple people that I knew personally like come through his program and like have like pretty amazing results. So I'm like, okay, well, as soon as my knee is good to go, I'm gonna hop on Wes's program, see what this is all about, get tuned up, and then maybe I could kind of kick off an online coaching career because I feel like I could do it. You know what I mean? And it wouldn't interfere with my firefighting career too much. It would almost benefit it at the same time. So that was kind of the game plan going into it. Get back in really good shape once I was cleared from a knee injury, and then absolutely have like a pretty incredible, 90-day transformation, 100-day transformation, whatever you want to call it, and then inspire other people to do the same thing and then show them how to build a proper relationship with exercise, general nutrition, and just living, a consistent, disciplined lifestyle with, definitive progress in mind. And yeah, I mean, and above all, the initial jump to really get myself in that level of shape and take it to the next level was I wanted to hopefully inspire my coworkers to do the same thing. Like, okay, guys, if we're all in really good shape and we eat clean, we take care of each other, we train really hard, like there's nothing that we can't do out there. Like the
Yeah.
things that seem hard to everybody else will just be easy to us, and it caught on with a couple of the guys I work with, not nearly as many as I'd hoped, but that was another reason too, where I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just take it to a different platform and see what happens. And after, working with Wes and attending a couple of events and just kind of slowly chipping away at building my own brand and building an online presence, it's completely blown up in the last couple of months, like to something that I didn't even think was fathomable. But obviously, I had the hopes and dreams that it would. But it's like, man, it actually happened, and but having the right intentions and the right goals, I feel like has helped bring that to fruition.
Yeah. Well, look, I got a whole bunch of questions. Yeah, I know you gave me a nice pause
Yeah.
there to jump in a minute ago, and I didn't. But first of all, I just a little shout out to my friend Max Theory. He's actually not my friend; his father is. And Max has that show, Cal Fire. His dad's really proud of him. And I've talked to some firefighters. They're like, it's not really like that, but it's a good show anyhow. But so the first, and like I said, I had a lot of questions, but the first thing I want to ask you about, and this is something that I was just listening to in a different arena. If you heard David Goggins, he was on a podcast. It's actually Rob Bailey's podcast, Chips and Caviar. And he went on a 2-hour rant about the Navy SEALs and whatever, despite, his rant was about. The one thing that I pulled away from that, though, is he had kind of a poor reputation amongst the SEALs when he was a trainer. And that's because he pushed them to bust their ass every day, beyond Hell Week, when they got, when they're full on SEALs and just kind of that regular maintenance, he got up every morning like it was Hell Week. And they're like, hey, dude, like this, the Hell Week's over. This is way too intense. And so I'm thinking about you going, hey, man, if I'm going to be a firefighter, I want to be in the best shape possible. Like you said, we can attack anything that comes our way, and only a couple of guys that resonated with. I mean, how does that work in your environment? Because I've seen some of your videos, man. You're fully, equipment on, pulling hoses, climbing ladders and stuff. Like, holy shit, this guy's got it. I mean, what are your coworkers saying when you're out performing?
Well, I mean, I think they're excited to have me on the engine because they know that if something goes down, like I'm gonna work. Like I'm in good enough physical condition. I prepare myself for what we would call a worst case scenario, and I feel like that needs to be more of a norm because we, like me in particular, our county, San Luis Obispo County, is a fairly slower county compared to some other areas of California. Like our call volume isn't where, like, say, LA County is, or some of these, more busy metropolitan areas. So we have time on our side to do these things. And a lot of people don't take advantage of that. And that, to me, is unacceptable because we have the time, we have the tools, and we have the ability, but very few people actually put it to work. And it's kind of scary sometimes because we see these instances. We study what we call like green sheets or close calls with other fire departments, other instances that had happened where someone either was hurt or killed, or it was a close call scenario. And I watch these videos and read these green sheets, and I look over it and I'm like, if that would have happened here, we probably have 4 dead firemen. Because first of all, we don't see this level of action on a repetitive basis. Second of all, most of our people have a physical ability that is far below what the standard should be. So getting into a situation that requires, being physically fit, having a high level of training, and then just all around like situational awareness on a very high level. Like, I wish we had guys that were more hungry to go the extra mile when it came to training and preparing, but we don't. And it's kind of sad. It makes me upset, but at the end of the day, all I can do is prepare myself. So that's what I do to the best of my abilities.
Sure. I can appreciate that. And without getting you into a ball of wax with all your coworkers, let's broaden that range out a little bit. I know that if I ask for the fire department to show up at my house or the police department, I want to see the guys that show up that are ready and prepared. I just realized why I resonated with you earlier on. And that was when I had my race team, most of the guys on my team were firefighters, all up in Apple Valley, Hesperia area. And these guys kicked ass. They stayed in shape. They were in it to win it, if you will. The question I have for you, Brad, is, like I said, let's open up that window a little bit. You're a trainer now. How do you get people to make that mental shift from just being the norm into wanting to become something better for themselves, be willing to take on a challenge of a 90-day reformation process? I mean, how do you get them to get that shift going?
Well, usually, it comes in the form of they're already interested, right? Most of the people that come to me, they're already interested. They kind of see what I do. They're like, man, like I really want whatever you got going on, so to speak. And I just provide basically the structure and removing of, a lot of the guesswork and where people have trouble filling in the blanks. That's kind of where I come in. Like, a lot of people are capable of doing what I did, but like you said, there has to be some sort of mental shift. And at the end of the day, I can say and do and build you a very badass program and school you on nutrition and get you up to par enough to be somewhat dangerous. You know what I mean? But the client, they have to want it at the end of the day, because if they don't want it and they don't believe that they can do it, then it's harder to accomplish. And as much I'll try to sit there and get them all fired up, but I don't preach motivation. I feel very much the same as you've probably heard with Goggins and Joe Rogan. Motivation is fleeting. Discipline is concrete, and we build discipline by doing these tasks through the day, like waking up really early, tracking our food, tracking our workouts, making sure that basically everything that we are doing through the day is putting us one step closer to where we want to be. And in a period of, 90 days, 6 months, for people who are really like on the ball and they do these tasks repetitively every day, it builds that level of discipline. And that's at the end of the program, what I want my clients to have is that personal level of discipline where they know exactly what they need to do to get to where they want. And as much as we sit and talk about fitness and health, it's fitness is a small part of the equation, but it's also kind of a big part of it, because it's hard to not feel unstoppable and extremely capable when you've seen yourself like go through a massive change in physical ability, mental capacity, and just personal discipline with a couple daily tasks that you could do over a period of time.
Do you find that you're preaching discipline a lot with the people that come to you, or have they seen enough of your posts and Wes's posts to go, okay, I know I need the discipline? Because I'm with you, man. You've got to practice discipline. Motivation might get you through one day out of the month, but really it's about that discipline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I kind of keep an open door policy, with my clients. Like if they're having an issue with something, they're struggling with something, they can reach out to me. And there's two ways they contact me. And like the app that I basically build all my training programs in, they can message me in the app, or almost all of my clients have my personal phone number. So I tell them this, I'm like, if it's something that can wait like a day or two, message me in the app. If it's something that needs to be addressed like in the next hour or two, text me. So if people are having issues, whether it's a mental struggle or they're just like, dude, I just need something to fire me up, and I'll just be like, dude, it's not about being fired up. It's like a lot of the days, like I don't want to get up at 3:30. I don't want to go kill myself in the gym. And there's some of the stuff that I have to eat that I don't necessarily want to eat, but I do it because it's going to get me where I want to be. I know that in the end. I see it already. I have the vision. I know what needs to be done. The structure and the blueprint has been laid out for me and then built by me as well. So I know what it takes, and I'm just going to do it. And that's basically all it is at the end of the day is like, here, I've basically given you everything that you need to do. Now you just need to bring yourself to do it. That's all there is to it. Don't sit here and talk about feelings. We don't care about feelings. Just do it. Take action.
It's amazing. Everybody's looking for a secret sauce, to get it done, when it really does come down to what you just said. Just do it, get the discipline, follow the program, you'll get there. Let me ask you this, beyond having better levels of physical fitness working with you, right? And probably better health from a diet standpoint, have you seen results outside of those particular arenas with your clients, like in business or in family life and things like that? Because I mean, look, I could assume that they are, but I'd love to hear from you what you've seen.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer that the discipline you practice with fitness and diet, that level, like once again, discipline and self-control, it pours over into every aspect of life. So a lot of my clients, that are taking it very seriously, like making the actual lifestyle change. I refer to myself as more of a lifestyle coach than a transformation coach. That they're making improvements across the board, and that's with work, with family, with self, and it all compounds, if they're really in it and they really want it. Like I got a younger kid that I work with. He's been with me for a couple months now, and he basically is like, hey man, your program's been helping me, want more financial freedom. I'm like working towards a promotion in my job, and I'm taking this test, and I've been studying, and I'm like, that's awesome, man. Like, that's great. Like you've basically gotten a level of confidence from taking care of yourself and being physically more aware, mentally more aware, that you want to step into a more responsible level because you feel like you're capable now. Like that's great. You know what I mean? And then obviously, you got the people on the other end of the spectrum, like more people that are in my line of work, whether it's law enforcement, fire, first responder, they're like, well, I'm in better shape now, so I can do my job better. You know what I mean? And then also the people, just general person, it's hard not to be happy when you really like the way you look and feel.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what I think is wrong with people in today's society is all this anxiety and depression and all this stuff is it comes from like a deep knowing that they could do better, but they just choose not to. If they just would get out of their own way and put in some work and stay consistent, that I feel like that depression and anxiety, that low self-esteem would quickly just get thrown on the back burner with just practicing a few simple things day in and day out.
I like how you just said that, because it opens up my next question. A few simple things, making those changes. You'd put a post up. I love it. And it was about having 10 minutes. There's no excuses for not working out, even if you had 10 minutes. And as you suggest in the video, if you did 3 minutes of burpees, most people would fail. 5 minutes, not probably 90 or more percent. The point is you can find the time, even 10 minutes, to find physical fitness. What does that look like for the average person to be on some type of program? What type of time sacrifice, or how simple is it really?
So most of my clients, I put them on, it's what I refer to as, it's a pretty big staple in the lifting. It's push pull legs. So you got basically, your push movements, which are like chest, tricep, shoulders on one day. And then the following day is like back, biceps, and a little bit of like rear delts, and then legs. And what that schedule does is it allows you to effectively train each muscle group like twice a week. So it's super simple to follow, and it's also very effective because you are training those muscle groups multiple times a week. Whereas most people, when they're working out, they have no idea what they're doing. They wander around the gym until they find something that looks like it might help them. But if you're actually following a regimen and your structured training is getting you to accomplish multiple exercises for the same muscle group every week, it is very effective in a period of time. It's simple to follow. Most of my clients either have very little workout experience, or they, the typical is, oh, I used to work out, I used to, be an athlete, or I used to do this. But what also helps is the software that I use, the app that I schedule and build all my training programs in. There's a demo movement or demo video for every movement. And there's the amount of reps and sets that I want you to accomplish are all lined out. And then you could track them. You could input, okay, I did 12 out of the 15 reps that you wanted me to do at this weight. And it saves that information. So like when you go and hit that exercise in like 3 days from then, when you're like, say, doing your push day again, you're like, oh man, like I did more reps and more weight. Like I'm making progress. You know what I mean? So and they can see that on a daily or weekly level. So it's super easy to follow. The only thing is most people just are intimidated by it. They're like, well, I don't want to work with a trainer, or I don't want to look like a bodybuilder. And I'm like, trust me, you probably won't. Don't be scared. It's just working out, like just be physical. And I have a wide variety of training styles for what people are trying to accomplish. Not everybody gets that push pull legs. Some of the guys that come on, like I said before, law enforcement, military, firefighters that have to have a level of conditioning or endurance or stamina. I'll throw in some like high intensity exercises or circuit training, or like in the CrossFit world, a WOD, something that's kind of short to the point, but will kick your ass in about 20 to 25 minutes versus throwing weights around for an hour, hour and a half. And that brings us back to the time commitment. Most of my workouts are designed to be done in about 30 to 60 minutes if you're following closely on time and pace and stuff like that, and not getting distracted with your cell phone or other people in the gym and stuff like that. I'd feel pretty confident that 95% of my workouts can be done in 60 minutes.
I will say, although I haven't seen your particular program, as somebody, I'm in my 50s, so as somebody that's worked out my entire life from 12, 13, when my brother got me in the gym, I've used workout programs the last couple of years, like the apps like you're referring to. There is no better tool in the gym than these workout apps. And I've been pretty satisfied with the couple that I've used, and we're talking about yours today. So if you don't have one, I would suggest you look into what Brad's got, because, like you said, there's videos to show you how to do the exercise. Even somebody that's been in the gym my whole life, you still forget, or the way that it's listed out, you still want to, okay, am I doing it right? And these videos are so valuable. And like you said, to be able to go back and see what your weight was the week before, or a few days before, and how many reps, you can track your own progress and go, oh, I should up it up, 5 more pounds, get a little stronger this week. What a great tool. I commend you for having that, because I know that that's an investment of time, energy, of course, financial. So I'm glad to hear you talk about that. I didn't realize you had one. Let's touch on diet a little bit. I mean, how much are people spending prepping, or in the kitchen, or changing their life to see some changes, some difference?
Now, I mean, as far as the way I prep, I keep it very simple and I encourage my clients to do the same thing because we're not, I say we're focusing on nutritional value, not like plate presentation. Like I'm not over here like Gordon Ramsay, like, look at this amazing thing I just made. Like it's like, hey, we need protein, carbohydrates, and fat. And then depending on what your macros are, what your goals are, a certain amount of each, typically a little bit we go my go-to kind of macro split for my clients when they're coming in and trying to lose a decent amount of weight or body fat is high protein, high fat, low carbs, because most people overdo carbohydrates easily, very easily. So I try to get most of my clients to focus their little allowance of carbohydrates around their training window as like a fuel source, because carbohydrates are like a fast burning fuel, whereas like fats are a slow burning fuel, and protein is the building component basically. So I'm like, basically just hammer down. We want like meat, in excess, and then once again, depending on the client and their macros, let's just say 6 to 8 ounces a meal, if not more. I mean, I was eating before I swapped my program around just recently, I was doing like a pound of meat for lunch and a pound of meat for dinner with like a bowl of fruit. And it's super simple. It was always delicious. And it's like, it never got old. And I kind of encourage my clients to eat that same way. I preach, and I'm very much a fan of the animal-based style diet. So a lot of meats, animal fats, Greek yogurt, some raw dairy products if you can get your hands on them, eggs, local honey, and then all sorts of fruit. And then you put all those ingredients into a mix in certain varieties and amounts, and you can't really go wrong. Because the biggest thing is just to focus on one, whole foods, eliminating heavily processed goods, and then things that are heavy in oils, whether it's vegetable oil, cooking oil, with once again going back to that level of processed goods these days. If you can just grab a piece of meat that is unfortunately these days still somewhat processed, but better than most options, meat and some fruit, and you throw in a little bit of more sustainable carbohydrates here and there, like rice, sweet potato, regular potatoes, like you're going to be just fine. But obviously that's breaks down to, again, teaching my clients, okay, here's your macros. This is the amount of protein you need to take in every day in grams, carbohydrates, fat in grams. We track our meals. This is how you learn where you're going to end up at the end of each day and how you should construct your meals. Now, if they need to go into more detail, then we can sit down and have a phone call and be like, all right, well, these are your numbers, then this is how I would go about it. But most of the meals, man, I mean, they're super simple, super quick. I can cook realistically 3 days worth of food in less than an hour. And it's all laid out, Tupperware sized out, and just I have, okay, there's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and snack would just be something simple like fruit or a protein shake, and these can all go with me wherever I go.
Not that hard. It's funny. I remember when I was training for the Spartan obstacle course championship in Iceland, and my trainer put me on a diet, all the things I needed. I said, wow, that's going to get boring. He goes, Jim, you're not eating for its taste good, or like you said, the Gordon Ramsay presentation. He goes, you're eating for fuel to accomplish the goal. You got to get past what tastes good, what looks good, variety, all that stuff. We ate overnight oats with Greek yogurt 7 days a week for breakfast. Had the perfect amount of carbs for our first workout and protein to get us going. I was like, yeah, that got old fast. But at the end of the day, I saw the results. So I love what you're talking about. I've seen through your Instagram some of those meals you've put together, super simple things, even provided some value for us people with sweet tooth, like, hey, here's my sweet alternative. So I appreciate that. And you're certainly speaking my language. I love when you talk about the food groups because, I have a ranch here where we raise cattle and we have eggs and we have a garden. So we're trying to use as much real meats and vegetables as possible. It's so important these days, especially as you work your way through the grocery store. I don't think people realize that.
Yeah, no, and it's massive. Like just And I've been focusing, on that style of eating for like the past, I'm gonna just say the past year, maybe a little bit more than a year. And it was brought to my attention by Paul Saladino, who's like the carnivore MD on Instagram. And I
Hmm.
kind of saw what he was preaching, and I was like, man, that all makes perfect sense. I'm gonna try this. And it was like completely life changing for me as far as like how I felt, how I performed, how I recovered. Like it just changed every aspect of how my life was going just by focusing more on like those kinds of food groups. And then even so, my clients tell me, within the first 2 or 3 weeks, like, man, my energy levels like feel great. I don't have any more brain fog. Like I'm not tired in the afternoons. Like I just feel great. And I'm like, yeah, because one, you're focusing on whole foods primarily. You're eating the proper amount of those foods that your body needs in order to operate at a functional optimum level. And then two, you're following a regimen. Like giving people need structure. People, as much as I rejected it when I was younger, structure is necessary. You know, when
Hmm.
you're drifting, when you have no definitive purpose or no definitive goal, it's easy to lose yourself in these small things that don't matter. So when you get people on a regimented lifestyle, when they're working towards something, they have a goal in mind. I think us just as humans, we feel better about ourselves with that.
Sure. Yeah, I got just a couple more questions for you. They're softballs. Um, First of all, on quick review of your social media, I mean, your pages look pretty hardcore. Tats, big muscles, a culture that most of us know, to be tough people. Your clients, do they come from all walks of life? Is everybody welcome? I would assume so, but I want to give you the chance to tell the audience, like, yeah, I'm open book here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and my clients do come from all walks of life, all over the place, all over the US, and I'm starting to kind of branch out into, Canada and UK and Australia as well with some of my clients. And everybody's welcome. I'm not going to turn anybody away. I'm not trying to just bring in like a certain type of individual that's like me. Anybody who resonates with anything that I say or put out there, whether it's my training style, my attitude, the way I eat, the way I preach about some of nutrition and just life, that's what brings people to me. You know what I mean? And I'm sure my image helps a lot too. Like I get a lot of men who are like, man, I want to look like you. I'm like, cool. Well, I got the remedy. Let's go. Like, you know
See
what
how
I
long
mean?
that lasts.
Yeah, but yeah, everybody and anybody is welcome. And the tattoos and everything, like there's some stigma that go along with that, but it's all just, I mean, I grew up idolizing people that were covered in tattoos, whether they were athletes or, rock and roll stars or people that buzzed around on motorcycles all the time. It was just, that's what I looked up to and that's what I became, in a sense. And now that I've kind of put myself into a better version, the best version of myself, you know, I still get a lot of people who are like, oh, well, where'd you do time or how much time you do? I'm like, dude, I've never been to prison, man. Like
Yeah.
I've gotten in a little trouble here and there, but I've never done anything, worth really bringing up. So it's just funny how judgmental people still are about
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, I got some of my greatest friends are covered in tats, and that's the
Hmm.
life I've lived, although I don't have as many as them. Uh, we talked a lot about your fitness program, and I appreciate the value you're bringing to our listeners with that. And we kind of skirted over your role as a fireman.
Hmm.
And you're doing this balancing act, and we did talk about both, but can you just encourage people that it's okay to do some balancing act and find the best version of yourself? Maybe you've got this career job, especially when you're on the fire department, because the flexibility and schedule, that you can do something else and find happiness and balance in both.
Absolutely. Like you said, with someone that has basically a schedule that allows an ample amount of time, I was like, man, I really, I want to do a little bit of something else and I'm making a little extra money never hurt anybody. So for if there's something, I always tell people reach out to me and like, well, what should I do? Like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, do what makes you happy. Pursue anything out of passion, and if you really love it, like if you really love doing it and you have a way of projecting that, like people will gravitate towards whatever you're selling, you know. So that's usually what I tell people is do things out of passion, and you can't go wrong with it either. It's not, because if you truly do love it, if you are passionate about it, it's not a chore, it's not work.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about both of the things I do for money right now, like working as a fireman and then being like a coach or a trainer. Like I love both of these things. So like if I have to go to the station for a couple of days, or if I'm busy all day on the phone with clients, or building programs and or educating people about nutrition, like I don't get frustrated. I'm not like, oh man, I got to do this again today. Like I love it. Like it's fun for me. So my biggest thing is, yeah, take on some sort of um, challenge in a sense, whether it's something you want to do for money or just for self, or just something to help fill up time. Personal, let's just chalk it up to personal development. You know, focusing on something that's going to make you a better version of yourself. Now, whether you do that through finding an additional way of income, through fitness and health and nutrition, or whatever other option might be, of convenience for you. But if you're doing it for the right reasons at the end of the day, one, because it makes you happy, it makes you better, and it might benefit you, your family, or somebody else, then those are all wins. Those are
Yeah.
all great things to start a new leaf, a new challenge for.
Last question for you, Brad. What does this look like in your family life? You've posted rarely, but I see a little bit of a family life there. How does this fit into that?
I mean, I make it work. Like I try to do, once again, balance everything to the best of my abilities. And now both of these jobs do take on quite a bit of time, because I mean, especially with the training thing, like feeling that need to be present online quite a bit. And it is what it is. I've gotten better at it as I've progressed, and it's gotten easier for me to do. But I have to pull back and be like, okay, like put the phone down for, even if it's just 20 or 30 minutes, and go like sit with my lady or my daughter, or like this last weekend when I had my son all weekend, like, put the phone away, tell the clients it's fine, I'll get back to you tomorrow. Like I'm with my family right now.
Mm.
And I still have a lot of work to do on that, at a personal level, but being present while at home, it does matter, and it's a big priority of mine, and it's an area of improvement that I need to improve on. But I've always just been such a workaholic, that I just immerse myself into whatever I'm doing as far as work goes. But I do need to work on like pulling the reins back and being like, okay, it's 1 o'clock. I'm gonna take a 2 hour break and hang out, pay attention to my daughter, my fiance, do some things around the house, and the rest of the world can wait until 2 or 3 o'clock, when I'm ready to come back and do whatever I need to do.
Right on. Well, I appreciate that. And, I think that my message this last year, mainly to dads, the best thing that you can do is be the best version of yourself so that you can be that dad, the strength, the provider, the resilient one that can fight back against whatever comes your way as a family, whether that's a pandemic or, society or whatever that looks like. So you're certainly aligned with what I believe in, and that's being the best version of yourself. Brett, really appreciate you being here today, sharing your story, sharing what you do. Where's the best place that people can find you and learn a little bit more about your programming and how you can help them?
Absolutely. So Instagram is probably the best form of social media to reach me on. You can get me at reliant.fitness on Instagram, YouTube as well, reliant.fitness, and then TikTok, reliant.fit. And if you're curious about getting on a program or what programs I have to offer, just shoot me a direct message on Instagram. I get back to everybody. I'm very punctual with that. And then if for some reason you don't feel like shooting me a message, I have an application link in my link tree in my bio that you could fill out, and I'll usually get back to my applicants within a couple days, depending on how my schedule looks. But Instagram is definitely the best place to get a hold of me directly.
I'll put that in the show notes, and a testament to Brad. He does get right back. That's how I got him on the show, as I reached out to him on a direct message. He shot me right back. So I appreciate that. Thank you for tuning in, Brad. Thank you again for being here. I love your message. And if you like the show, please share it. These are great, helpful tips for you to be the best version of yourself. So thank you so much
for listening to today's show. It is my pleasure and honor to interview all of the guests that have been on the Answer is Yes podcast. If you have enjoyed the show, please go on iTunes and subscribe, give a rating, or simply tell a friend about the show. We also believe in the message of our guests and the positive influence of their stories. As my own mentor and coach, David Meltzer, has taught me, spend some time every day thinking and writing about the things in your own life that you have more than enough of. You will find out how blessed we really are. Please visit my website, livelifedriven.com, for the latest updates about me and what I'm doing. Plus, I post a monthly blog about the many topics on this show. This podcast can also be found there. As I learned early on in life, what you believe is what you will achieve. Thanks, Mark Victor Hansen, and thank you, and have a great week.